looks like we already got a couple people coming in. Awesome. Well, welcome in, y'all. I believe it's Lonnie and Mark so far. Reagan is in here. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining in. Hopefully you can hear me okay. You can see me okay. I'm going to do my introduction here in just a couple minutes. There's a few students who have signed up for today, a small handful of y'all. So hoping to give you some good information. And I'll just wait for everyone to pop in first before I get going. This is super low stakes. Yes, I do work at PLU, but this is all about general college information right now. And so I'll explain what we're going to go over today. If you have any questions during this little webinar, it's only going to take about 30 minutes or so, and then I'll give you guys time for a Q&A session at the end if you feel like you need some questions. But during, if you have questions and there's something that I say that you're not quite sure about, if you scroll down to the bottom of your screen, you should see a Q&A box down there. If you click on that, feel free to throw anything in there. If you're curious about something, if you're unsure about something, if I don't see it right away, I'll definitely get to it at the end when we have that Q&A time. But that just gives you a chance to put anything in there that you want, maybe you're curious about. If you're thinking it, someone else in here is probably thinking it as well, so don't be shy whatsoever. But we're here to just kind of share some information for you guys as we get going on the school year, and especially in this college search process. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your afternoon to join, hopefully after a good day of learning online. It's Friday Junior today, one more day of the week, and then you guys got the weekend. So keep hanging in there and doing a good job, y'all. And just so you guys know, as you can see, or should be able to see anyway, that's all of my contact information. Again, I'm specifically affiliated with PLU. If you have questions about PLU that you want to know about, you can always reach out to me because I'm your specific admission counselor. But if you have general college questions too that you're curious about, if it's a different school, if you just want to talk about, how to even look up colleges or whatever it is, I can also be a resource for you as well if it's not PLU specific things. So I want you guys to know that obviously your counselors at the high school, your teachers, parents, family members, all those people. I'm just another one that is helping support you along the way. So if you do want to reach out at all, my email, phone number, and then our PLU admission Instagram is there too, which has some really good info that y'all can pay attention to throughout the school year. A little more specific to PLU, but also some good college tips in general too. Okay. Well, I don't want to hold you all too long. Try to stick to my timeline here, so we'll go ahead and get started. First thing is first, I'm going to send you guys a poll really quick, so hopefully you can see this. But if you can take a quick second to answer this and then send me your feedback. So it's where are you in the college search or college application process at this point in time? Either you haven't started yet whatsoever, but you're planning to begin soon. You've looked at some college applications, maybe you're working on college applications already, or you might have even finished an application to this point, but it just gives me a good idea of who we have here. Awesome, you guys are quick to it. I'll go ahead and just share this out so you guys all know. Great, half of you aren't even started yet, and that's more than okay. That's what we're here for today. Looks like a couple of y'all have looked at them, but maybe haven't started, or maybe are getting to that point, and one of you is already working on it. Hopefully today is still beneficial for you and just helps you stay on the right track, okay? We'll go ahead and stop that row. We'll have another one at the end, just talk about what we went over anyway. But so you guys know who I am. My name is Brady Daly. I am an admission counselor at PLU. I went to Clover Park High School, graduated in 2013, went to PLU and graduated in 2017. And I've been an admission counselor since then, so this is my 4th year. And I've been working with Clover Park School District the whole time, which is awesome, knowing that I grew up in the Lakewood area. I'm from there, and I still get to be around the area and continue working with the awesome students that we have that are coming from right down the road. So this is a big deal to just learn some more information as we kind of move forward. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with y'all. So hopefully you can see this. And if you have, again, questions today, Use that Q&A box down towards the bottom. Please fill it up if you feel the need to. But I'm going to go through just the college application and what that means. Okay. So today we're going to cover what it means to have a stellar application. We're going to go through an acronym called TREATS, and I'll explain what that is. Give you a couple final tips and pointers anyway. Half of you said you haven't quite started this process yet, and that's okay, but you're here right now, and so that's what's important. That's that first step, and so hopefully you walk away today feeling much better about this whole process as we move forward. So again, not just PLU specific, but if you're looking at a university or a college, these are common things that are going to be required to apply to school. As you can see at the bottom, there are always exceptions to the rule. So this is not the case everywhere, but most likely you're going to need a transcript, a recommendation, an essay or a personal statement, an application, and test scores, or some combination of those 5 things. So we use the acronym TREAT. It's almost like you're giving your admission counselor a treat when you send your application in. We get to go through and review those and help you through this process. We'll go ahead and break these down one at a time. So first T is transcripts. We have to see what kind of grades you have, what kind of classes you're taking. One thing that colleges and universities will look at is your grade trend. And so what that means is how have your grades progressed throughout high school. We all know that this last spring was weird, obviously because of COVID. Some districts were doing certain things that other districts weren't, but you don't need to worry about that when you send your transcript in. Your main goal is to just get those grades to the school that you're applying to, and we will take care of the rest. We're going to look at things like your rigor of coursework. Are you taking AP or IB courses, for instance? Are you taking your general classes? Are you loading up on electives? What kind of makes up that overall, cumulative GPA that you have? Those are things that college and universities are going to look at and assess. It's not necessarily good or bad or right or wrong, but you just want to be doing the best work you can be doing and put your best effort forward. Hopefully that's been happening throughout your time in high school, but college will take a look at that. Your senior course selection does count. We talk a lot about when you get admitted to school, as we're all planning to be, then you maybe think that that's kind of it. But you still want to finish off the year strong, especially if you're looking at finishing up your high school graduation requirements. If there's certain things that you need to finish this year, make sure they get on your schedule. If you're looking to apply to things like state schools or public schools like UW or Washington State, for instance, they have very strict guidelines of what you need to be eligible to be admitted. It's called your CADRs. And if you're not sure what those are, you can always talk to your counselors at the high school. But basically, it's X amount of years of English, math, science, foreign language, and those kinds of things. So if you haven't completed those, make sure you're doing those this year to get those all done. Private schools like PLU, for instance, can work a little bit different, where we don't necessarily have to meet all of those requirements, but we still look for a majority of them anyway. But if you're curious about those, you can always reach out to that admission office and see what they really are looking for in your transcript in case you need to add on or take away some classes from your senior year. When we look at your junior year, that's kind of the important one because most students are going to apply this fall, right? So if you're a senior right now and you apply during the fall of your senior year, there's no grades yet from senior year that we can look at. So the most recent grades would be your junior year. Now, you can ask to have a mid-year report sent in. So if you feel like you did really well your first semester of senior year, and that's going to help your cumulative GPA, it's going to help us show that you're pointing in the right direction and trending in the right direction as far as your grades go. Don't be afraid to ask to send that. The majority of schools are going to be okay with that, and they're actually be really inviting and welcoming to that opportunity. We want to see, the most up-to-date grades we can. So take advantage of that if you feel it's going to benefit you. Another piece of the transcript is going to be your weighted or your unweighted GPA. So in the state of Washington, we do not weight GPAs at the high school level. So there's nothing really that you need to do. Your unweighted GPA is what you see, right? Your cumulative that you get after the semester, that you have, all the years of classes you've taken. Your weighted GPA is what we do at the college. And so we're going to take into account any AP classes or IB classes that you've taken in the past. And we're going to actually bump up those grades from those classes. I'll use PLU as an example because every school does it a little bit differently. But if you were to take let's say AP literature or AP language, and you received a B in that class, typically a B is a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale, right? For a weighted GPA, we will look at that actually as a 3.5 on a 4.5 scale. So you do get a little bit higher GPA for that particular AP or IB class, and that's what your weighted GPA is made up of. Again, there's nothing you need to do as a student. It's just sending your transcript in and we'll take care of the rest. But keep that in mind in case you've taken some of those advanced courses. And then lastly is a self-reported transcript versus an official transcript. Self-reported means it's coming from you, the student. Official, if it's going to count as an official transcript, which we need to review in your application, it needs to come from your school essentially, or from an official staff member at that school. So that could be your registrar, that could be your career counselor, that could be your guidance counselor, for instance. But somebody at the school that has access to those official records, if that person sends it, they can send it in the mail. They can also send it via email. And so they can actually send it directly to the admission office that you are applying to. And that counts as official. If it comes from the student though, it's a little tough. And so we can't really count those because we're unsure of where it's coming from, but make sure it's coming from your counselor at the school, the registrar's office. It could even come from the website called Parchment. And if you're unsure about that, talk to your counselors because they can show you how to use that website, but you can't order them online and those can count as official too. But transcripts will be the first part when you're looking to apply to school. And we just got to see what those grades look like and where you kind of fall, in line with the rest of the students that are applying. Okay. So now moving on to that next letter is R for recommendation. The first question is how many, if any, are required? So does a school need a recommendation letter? And if so, how many recommendation letters are they asking for? Some will ask just for one, some may be more than that. Some don't even have a requirement for recommendation letters, but they do like to see them still. So it's probably a good idea to go ahead and make this happen as you're going through this process and find people who are going to speak on your behalf. Does the college ask for a specific type of recommendation? If there aren't any guidelines, for instance, you should probably be looking at your core teachers, people who have taught you in English and math and science, for instance, who can speak about you as a academic, as a student, and what that side of you is like. Then if there's additional people who want to speak about you, like a choir director, for instance, or teacher, a coach, a mentor, an employer, somebody from church, right? These additional people can also write recommendations for you. Basically, it's someone who knows you well, can speak well on your behalf, and is not family or friends, but they're going to be authentic to who you are as a student and as a person, and want to help you get into school. So you want to really think about who you're going to ask or who you should ask, and again, someone that you have a good relationship with or knows you pretty well in that academic setting would be really good to go to them to ask for help. You want to give them a lot of time when it comes to filling out your recommendation. So please don't ask them the week of or the day of. If it's due November 1st, you probably should be asking right now or should have already asked. I'd say about 3 to 4 weeks is a good timeline. 2 weeks is probably the minimum. But if you still haven't done it by then, just get it to that person as quickly as you can and give them time to write a really good recommendation for you. They're doing it because they want to help and support you along your journey. It's not a requirement. And so if you do get someone to say yes and they write that recommendation, just be thankful, give them a quick note, get them a Starbucks gift card if that's their deal, whatever the case may be. But even though as a student, you're never going to see, or you may never see that recommendation letter, know that that person is usually speaking pretty highly of you, is really complimentary of you, and again, is trying to help you get to the next level of your education. So a quick thank you can go a really long way. But recommendation can be another way for us to learn about you as a student. Okay, so the third part is the E, which stands for essay. It's not like a regular high school essay, so don't stress too much about it. But this is something you have full control over. It's all your voice. And really it should say story rather than essay, because it's not, 5 paragraphs or 5 pages by any means. You're not arguing anything. You don't have to do any research or look up articles or anything like that. So it's a chance for you to tell us who you are, what you do, Talk about a moment in your life that was impactful. Why do you want to go to school? What do you want to do after school? Whatever you want to talk about. That's what this essay is all about. So think of things like characteristics, maybe, or a specific characteristic that you want the school to know about you after they read your essay. If you want them to know you have a really good work ethic, use some examples and details and tell us why that is. If you're looking forward to going to that particular school, talk up the reasons why. If there was a particular incident that happened in your sport, or maybe volunteering, or when you were traveling abroad with family, or visited another state or something like that, talk about what happened and how it's impacted you. If you've been, living at home in the last 6 months, like majority of us have, what's been going on, and how have you kind of learned and grown during this time. So whatever you want to speak on is totally fine. But make it authentic. Don't feel like you have to make anything up, because we don't want, fake stories. At the college level, we just want to get to know you better as an incoming student, so we can see if you're ready, because we're going to look at how you write. So things like grammar, punctuation, spelling, all those things are going to matter. You're not being graded on it, but we take note of it, right? So if you want to get the thing revised, edited, and make sure you put together a really strong essay moving forward, and that is something that you're proud of. But as admission counselors, we're constantly reading applications all year, constantly meeting students all year. And so sometimes it can be tough to get to know you on a one-on-one basis, remember all the little details about you, but we do try our best, I promise. But this essay can be a way to continue to get your story across as you're moving through this process. It's just something to keep in mind. If you can think of something that's not in your application, please use that. Try not to repeat things that are already in your application. We want this to be a tool for you to help us learn more. If you really can't think of anything outside your application, that's more than okay. But think about the details of what you can go into. Myself, for example, I was a student athlete in high school, and so I spoke about that process for me. I definitely know it was part of my application, but I tried my best to use a very specific practice, a very specific event that happened at that practice, and speak about that and how that impacted me, rather than the fact that I was a student athlete, which the admission office already knew because I put that on my application. So hopefully that makes sense as far as just diving a little bit deeper. But it's really up to you what you want to write about. And if you're struggling, you can always reach out for help, and we can do some brainstorming. People like myself, admission counselors at these schools, we will read applications and essays too ahead of time. And so if you need help with that essay, and you're not sure who to go to, you can always send that to your admission office, and they will most likely review it for you and give you some pointers ahead of time. Okay. So the application itself, that's what the A stands for. How many are you going to be doing or filling out? So I would say if you can fill out maybe 5 to 8, that's probably a really good range of applications. Less is fine as well. I'd say if you're going to go higher than that, I would not go over 10 if you're looking at the most amount of apps you could fill out. You can only go to one school, right? You can't go to multiple places. So if you have an idea of applying to 15, 20, 30 schools, I would ask that you get rid of that idea, and really try to hone in on the schools that you are fully interested in, and are actually considering going to. So looking at how many schools you should apply to, sometimes it's 3 to 5 for some students, sometimes that 5 to 8 range, but somewhere in there would probably be a really good idea. Definitely more than one, in case that doesn't work out for you. You want to have a backup plan or two ready to go. Okay. Part of applying to only so many schools is that some of them actually, it costs money to apply to schools sometimes. It's not always the case. Not every school is like that, but some do ask for an application fee. And so you want to be aware of that. If finances are, a struggle, especially in these times, talk to your counselors at the high school level. See how you can get a fee waiver, because a lot of times colleges and universities will provide those, or you can get those through different services too. But just keep that in mind. Some of them do cost to apply. So all of a sudden, if you're applying to 10 schools, it's $30 an application. And next thing you know, you're spending $300 simply to apply to these schools. But again, if money is an issue, reach out for help, and most likely you can get that waiver is necessary. So there is a couple different platforms out there. There are a couple different platforms out there, excuse me. One of them is the Common application that schools may use. Another one's called the Coalition application. Common App is more common and more widely used than the Coalition application. But basically what these are just platforms that schools use in order to allow you to apply to more than one place at once. So PLU, for instance, we're a Common App school. If you fill out this application, then you can just add PLU to the list of schools you are going to send your application to, and it goes out all at the same time, which makes it really easy to apply to multiple schools at once. The Coalition application is similar, but there's not as many schools on there. I believe UW is the main one around here that uses the Coalition app. So you just want to make sure, which platforms are partnered with what schools. If you're unsure, you can always check in with a particular school that you're applying to or interested in and ask them, what they use. Some schools use their own specific application just for them, and so that can be an option too. But Common App and Coalition App are something you'll probably see throughout this college search process. And then there's a few different ways that colleges work around deadlines. So the first of this is called rolling admission. That's what we do at PLU, for instance. We have certain dates you can shoot for to apply by, and we try to get back to you in about 3 to 4 weeks. But we basically will read applications as they get to us. So it's pretty relaxed. If you apply beyond the dates, usually you can continue to apply as well, because rolling admission just means we're going to read them as they get to us and try to stick to that 3 to 4 week timeline or whatever the case is for that particular school. So that's kind of the first one. Early action is a way to apply sooner than other students and hear back about your admission sooner than them as well. It does not mean you have to go to school there, but it means you have some pretty big interest because you are applying early. You may save a little bit of money as far as the application fee goes, if that school has one. But basically, you're going to know sooner than the rest of the student body or the majority of the student body will. And that can really benefit you if that's a school you're super interested in. So that's something to keep in mind. Early decision is the one that you want to be aware of and be cautious of. This means that if you apply to a school early decision and you get admitted, you are telling that school already, I am going here next year. I'm going here no matter what happens. You've admitted me early and that's it. So that means you're going to withdraw all other applications and any deposits that you've made to any other schools, and you're going to completely stop your college search process because it's done at that point. So the only reason you should be applying early decision is one, if that school offers it, but two, and most importantly, is if you are fully invested and ready to go to that school no matter what happens. There's not very many students out there who are in that boat. So early decision isn't the best idea for a lot of people, but it is there. The one thing to caution you about is if you do apply early decision to a school and you get admitted, you've now said, yes, I'm going to school here. It's binding, you're committed to go. You may have that done before you know what your financial aid status is. So you may have just committed to a school without knowing what kind of scholarships you're going to be getting. And that can sometimes be scary for families and students. So just be aware of that. Not a lot of schools do early decision anyway, but I want you to know how that works and the difference between those. The last one is just one date. So a lot of schools will have one particular date. Let's say it's November 15th. If you apply by that date, then you're going to be considered. If you miss it, then, unfortunately, you missed the opportunity to apply to that school. So you just want to pay attention to what those deadlines are and if there's any particular details that you need to be aware of how that school works with their deadlines, okay? Just like the essay, punctuation, grammar and spelling are important, and we look at those things. So just be cognizant of those as you go forward, okay? To kind of continue with the application, there is a, what you would call a resume section, an activity section. This is where you put down pretty much anything you've been involved in since you've been, in high school. So things like school activities, this can include clubs, sports, government, leadership, community service, non-school activities. If you're in a club sports outside of school, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, employment, mission trips, anything along those lines, travel, and the list goes on. Family responsibilities. Some people think that's not, something that could go on a college application, but please put that on there. Schools want to see what you're doing besides being a high school student. And so don't sell yourself short. If you think it could maybe, be beneficial to you, put it on your application. Let us at the college level determine, what we want to do with that, but give yourself the most opportunity to show your involvement. Show that you're committed, things you've done for 2, 3, 4 years, for instance. If you only did something for, 2 hours on a weekend because you volunteered, okay, great, put that on there. But if you've been doing something for 3 years, for instance, those are the things that we definitely want to look for. And especially if you've had any sort of leadership opportunities, whether it's formal, if you're like president or vice president of a club, or informal in certain ways, maybe you've just helped out with an organization or volunteered. Maybe we're working with elementary students and middle school students in something, right? Those things count. So brag about yourself. It's a little weird sometimes, but you want to basically talk yourself up as much as possible while still being authentic and true to who you are, okay? All right, a few more slides here, and then I'll be done. This last T is for test score. So that means SAT, ACT, or test optional. Some schools will ask for a test score. Some are test optional. Because of COVID, majority of colleges and universities are going to be test optional for the seniors that are graduating this year out of high school. We'll have to wait and see what happens, if that's going to continue or not in future years. But if you're unsure, just ask your schools that you're looking at what their requirements are. A lot of students this last spring did not get a chance to do an SAT or ACT, and that's just the way that it went. Some students are getting those chances now, which is great. I think it's good to take these tests at least once if you can, to see where you kind of lie at. But if you take these tests and you don't like your scores and you think it's going to hurt you, see if your school offers test optional route and what that means, because that can really benefit students moving forward. If you haven't taken them and you're planning to, when should you take them? The best time is junior year, in my opinion. If it's your senior year and you haven't done it yet, if you can fit it in, awesome. If it's going to be too much stress, if it's going to take away from other things you're doing in school, if your school does not require test scores, you may not have to take that test. Okay, so just be aware of that. And if you're curious, again, just reach out specifically to those schools that you're looking at, and we can help you make that determination. If you can take them more than once, that's great, because you can get a super score, is what it's called. So we can take, your best section from the SAT, your best reading and writing section, and pair that with your best math section, and we can make that your overall score, which can help you out. Same thing with ACT. You can take that best math, reading, and science section to put those together. But if you only take them once, great. If you don't take them and your school is test optional, great, right? Whatever you want to put forward as your best application, that's what colleges are really looking for, okay? All right, so these final tips here, I want you guys to know that you can get into school, okay? So if you're nervous about that, if you are super confident in that, great, but you can get in one way or another. There's only about 100 schools or so that are highly selective in the US and the whole country, where there's thousands of colleges to go to. Those schools, accept less than a quarter of the students that apply. All the rest of us, we accept a whole lot more than that. PLU, we accept over 75% of students that apply, which is a really big amount, especially for a private school. But there's a school out there for you. You just got to find it and see, where you best fit in at and where you best feel like you belong. If you're showing interest, then the school is definitely going to be looking at you. If they've shown interest in you, think about applying there. Why did they show interest in you? Have you even considered applying to that school, or going to that school's website, or doing an online tour, in-person visit, if that's an option? Start to learn about those schools and then decide as you're kind of moving forward, okay? Majority of applications this year are going to have an additional section for COVID specific reasons. And so if you and your family or your situation, y'all were impacted by the pandemic in some way, shape, or form, and you think that you need to speak on behalf of that, use that COVID question or that section to just talk about that. rather than using your essay to talk about it. I want your essay to be something that's unique to you specifically. We've all been impacted by these last, 6 to 7 months in some way, shape, or form. And if you feel like you want to talk about that again, use that specific section, and use your essay to talk about who you are and what your story is. Okay. If you don't want to talk about that, no problem whatsoever. It's not a requirement. It's just there as an option. All right. Something that you should be doing with this is taking time. I don't want you to rush through this process. I want you to be prepared and feel confident about it. Get help. Ask for people to look at it, edit it, revise it. Whatever you put forward, that's you in an application. And so be proud of what you put forward, but you got to put the work in and the effort in at the same time. It's not going to happen just on its own. Okay. But again, you're in charge of this process. So take ownership of it, be responsible for your applications, know when your deadlines are, and you'll do just fine as you move forward. Okay. And then lastly, again, I kind of mentioned it earlier, but majority of the time at these schools you're applying to, there's people like myself, admission counselors, who are going to be reading these applications. So the more we get to know you through this application, through phone calls, through emails, through texts, through other interactions that we get to have with you, that will help us to get to know if you're a really good fit for that school or not, in our opinion, in your opinion, right? So take advantage of those opportunities. And again, just try to put that best foot forward as you're going through this process. Okay, so that's a lot of information. Again, I saw a couple of people pop in the Q&A, so I'll get to those in just a second. But next week, I'm going to be back here, and I expect all of you will be back here as well. So the same time, same place. We're going to go over College Essay 101. Today was College Application 101. Next Thursday, October 15th at 4 p.m., we're going to do College Essays and give you some tips on where to get started, how to make it a good college essay, how to kind of stand out from the crowd, and help you along that aspect too. But I did send out a link this week. I'm going to do that again for the next webinar. And so you should have that. If we don't have you in our system, then talk to your counselors at your school, because they have these links as well and can get you the information, so that way you can sign up ahead of time, and also spread the word to your friends. If you can get more people here, that's going to help them learn about college application process. Get your family to join in and listen on these if they want to. We'll have more suited for them a little bit later on. But yeah, hopefully next week you can join in for that college essay one as well. Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen really quick and get to y'all. I appreciate you guys hanging in there. Oh, sweet, we had a few more people join in. All right. So looking at the questions, will this recording be available to watch? Yes, we did record this, and so we will go ahead and when I get this sent to the high schools, they'll be able to distribute it or have it on their websites one way or another, so that way you can go back and rewatch this. We do also have similar ones on our PLU website if you want access to those, but this particular one will be available sometime in the near future. Another one, do you have a recommendation on essay length? 1 page, no more than 2 pages? Yeah, really good question here. So usually your essay is going to be most likely 500 to 600 words or so. Again, we're not asking for 5 paragraphs, 5 pages, nothing like that. So it's not a typical high school, essay from an English class. When colleges read these essays, we're looking to obviously learn your story. We're also looking to see, can you be concise with your writing and get your point across? So that's something that we're looking for. Again, 500 words, maybe 600 words. Sometimes you'll see a word minimum on some of the prompts that you're going to be answering. Maybe they'll say a 250 word minimum is what you need. Sometimes they'll give you a maximum, maybe it's 6 or 650 as far as the max goes. And so you may have to cut things out. You may have to add some things in. I guess when you're going through that process, if you write your essay out and it doesn't quite fit in, then you can go back and start to edit and revise and decide what's the most important information to get across, and how can you make that point be heard. But that's just part of the process. But really good question there. Again, you're trying to get your story across, be unique, be authentic, but also be concise. in your writing, and that helps us to see where you're kind of sitting at in that aspect. Okay. And then is next week the same Zoom link? It will not be the exact same Zoom link. So again, I will send out an email to all the students in our system that are in the Clover Park district. You'll be getting this email, whatever email we have on file anyway. If you don't receive that, then I think I'm going to try to send it out either tomorrow or Monday. If you don't receive that and you're curious, you can always go again to your counselors at the high school, send them a quick email, and that information is available. So that way you can join us for the next one. Go online, register ahead of time, so that way I see just who's joining us as you're moving through this process, and hopefully that one will be beneficial to you as well. Okay. Any other questions from the crowd? Again, use that Q&A box if you have something that you're curious about. Remembering those different pieces of the application. You know, transcripts are going to be something that every school needs. The application itself is going to be something that every school needs. But then things like the essay, things like the recommendation letters, things like the test scores, those are the pieces that are going to be optional, or maybe different at certain schools. Some of them require all of those parts. Some of them don't. But if you're curious again about those specific requirements for those schools that you're interested in, then please just go ahead and reach out to us at those admission offices, because we want to give you that information so that way you can you know, have the best info moving forward through this process, and you know what's asked of you. Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much, Lonnie. I appreciate your comment. How can we apply for Essay 101? Yep. So again, that next Zoom link will be out soon, whether it's coming from myself or from the high school counselors or administration. We will get the info out to you guys, so you're able to join next week. Again, that's going to be next Thursday at 4 o'clock, just like this one was. And then, how are schools with PSAT scholarships or any test score scholarships going to be giving out those? It's a really good question here. Majority of schools actually don't consider the test scores when it comes to giving out academic scholarships. If you happen to submit test scores, then they can be used as part of that consideration. I'll use PLU as an example, right? So we're a test optional school. When we give out an academic scholarship, then that is based on a student's GPA for the most part. If a student sends in test scores, then we will absolutely take a look at those, and we will consider them in combination with the transcript. But majority of your academic scholarship at a lot of places is going to come from your transcripts. It's just a much better indicator of who you are as a student, because you're going to school, you know, 5 days a week, for instance. Have been doing that for 4 years versus a test score. You're taking that once, maybe twice throughout your time in high school. So it's not as good of an indicator of who you are as an academic, as a student, what you can really do inside the classroom. But absolutely, we will consider them. And if you add them to your application, it's something that we use to help determine your academic scholarship if you are admitted. Again, speaking on behalf of PLU, but that's also the case that most other schools you're looking at. If they are absolutely requiring a test score, then, and you're having trouble, you know, being able to sign up for a test or take a test, that's kind of just unfortunately a tough situation right now to be in. But I do believe majority of schools this year are really considering just waiving it for students that ran into issues, you know, for obvious reasons there, because of COVID and whatnot. So, but yeah, if you are curious about the specific schools you're interested in, I would highly encourage you to reach out to their office so they can speak more on their own particular behalf, though. But very good question. I appreciate you asking that. Okay. All right. Well, before you guys leave, Again, if you have another question, feel free to throw it in there. I do want to send this second poll out really quick. So if you could take the time to read through these options. So after hearing this information, how do you feel about applying to college? I'm still nervous or unsure, and I want to talk more. You feel better and think that you can get started now. This talk really confirmed the path that you are on, and you feel like, okay, you're confident and you can, work your way through your applications and complete them. Or, applying to college is a piece of cake. Thanks, Brady, but I knew all this already. And you're about to be, done with that process. So wherever you fall in that category, I'd love to see your feedback there. Just a couple more people. I'll give you a few more seconds to give your answer. All right. We'll go ahead and stop, share. Awesome. So a lot of you feel better, which is great. That's the goal of today, is to help you feel better and get you to a point where you feel like you can get started in this process. You're not behind by any means. So I hope you don't feel that way. Even a couple of you who have maybe started feel like this is just, reiterating that you're doing the right things. And so that's awesome to see too. If any of you are interested or curious about, talking more in a one-on-one setting, feel free to email me. Again, if it's PLU specific, awesome. If it's college in general, great. But email me, and if you just have a quick question, I can answer that. If you want to set up a one-on-one Zoom or Google Hangout, we can do that and walk through some things together as well. But I'll be here as a resource for y'all moving forward, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and end here. I appreciate y'all taking the time to join me today. Again, next Thursday, we'll be back here again for College Essay 101. But I hope y'all have a great rest of the day today, tomorrow, during Friday, and then enjoy your weekend, all right? I'll see you guys later.